Suzerain just got its biggest update in almost a year, and if you haven't played in a while, now is the perfect time to come back. Or, if you've never played, it is the perfect time to jump in. If you're new and you've never heard of Suzerain, it is a political narrative game where you lead the fictional country of Swordland through political chaos, economic collapse, and ideological battles, all through dialogue choices. Think West Wing, but as a video game. Swordland is teetering on collapse after a failed president and a recession hitting the country. People are scared and turning to extremists to fix their problems and their country's problems. You play as the president of Swordland, Anton Rain, and it's up to you to fix the country and turn it democratic and recover the economy, or wrap all state mechanisms around your fingers and become a dictator. Or your political career can crash and burn, and your decisions can lead the country into economic ruin, nuclear war, trade wars, actual wars, or you could just be voted out of office and forgotten as another president in a long line of incompetent ones. That's what Suzerain is all about, making hard, realistic political choices that cause you to consider what you believe in real life. Of course, if you're interested, I did make another video on why Suzerain is such a great game. Feel free to check it out, and also like and subscribe. But anyway, getting back into it. As I talk so much about Swordland, there is also the DLC, which is basically a whole new game on its own, Rizia, where you play as a monarch on a shattered peninsula and have an uneasy grip over power. If Swordland is a fragile republic teetering on collapse, Rizia is a kingdom barely holding it together. You don the crown of a new monarch trying to hold an ancient realm together by threads, facing rebellion, rival nobles, foreign interference, and the ever-looming, ever-present question: does monarchy still have a place in the modern world? Unlike Swordland, you don't have a constitution to guide you, just power, tradition, and whatever legitimacy you can cling to. Of course, you are an absolute monarch with only the trappings of a semi-constitutional state, but you still have to consider all of the actors on stage when you make decisions, as coups and revolutionaries seem to be around every corner waiting for you to slip up. The new 3.1 update, which I wanted to talk about, is still in beta, but it is fully playable and I recommend jumping in. There does have to be a little bit of tweaking, but it adds a ton of new content for both the base game and the DLC. For both versions of the game, a lot of quality of life additions and improvements have been made. Things like being able to skip text, which if you've ever played the game before, you know how big of a deal that is. Before this update, you would just have to mash the spacebar to get through dialogue you've already seen 100 times. Now you can just turn on skip, read, forward in the options, and it will just skip through all previously seen dialogue choices and go straight to your actual choices that you're making or decisions you have to make. Just the actual parts where it matters. Now, if you've never played the game, or have only played a couple times, you might be thinking, oh, you're a fake fan, why would you not want to read it? I mean, isn't most of the game reading? It's all about the narrative, why would you not want to read the narrative? So, for the first couple times, I did read through every single time, but I currently have 400 hours in game, spread among both the base game and the DLC. I have played through a lot of times, and when you just want to achievement hunt, or you're only looking for certain dialogue, or you've played this path before and you're just sort of retreading it because you like the game a lot, this is where it comes in handy so much. Not to mention, there are times in both the base game and DLC where the whole point of the dialogue is just exposition. No choices are being made, no new information is made available to you, none of your other choices matter this scene. You are just being talked to about issues that you've heard 100 times before. So if you played the game before, you know that having the auto skip is so welcome, and if it's your first time jumping in, don't even worry about it. Another big change in the 3.1 update is how the economy is shown and presented. Suzerain has finally added an economic chart that tracks the impact of your decisions over time, including a historical comparison to your predecessor's presidency. There's also a new info tab that gives you a clear sense of how stable or unstable your economy is at any given moment. These improvements have made the game much more playable and interactive. Before this, unless you were following a guide or already knew what was coming up next, you could be making solid economic decisions and see no positive feedback for hours. Till the end of the game, you would not know that your decisions were good ones. The game, through dialogue, might keep telling you your economy is in shambles, everything is awful, there's no way to fix this, only to get turned around at the very end and then get told everything's great and fully recovered. Now you can actually see the trajectory and effects of your policies as you govern while it's happening. I also like how the stability of your nation affects the economy as well. Now this has always been in-game, but now you can actually finally see it while it's happening. Because if bad things happen and your country's political environment becomes unstable, now your economy starts getting shakier. It is realistic to how real economies function. If people think the country is going to collapse, business owners probably aren't going to be expanding and feeling optimistic about the economy. If you have hyperinflation, people probably aren't investing because what's the point if their dollar just becomes worthless day by day? So I like how now you can kind of finally see that in action in game. Like in my last game, I had the economy going great, full capitalist, things were going awesome, but then I failed to reform the Constitution, and then my economy just went from growing to unstable, and the chart showed a clear downturn trend. I mean, it really makes the game a lot more dynamic and finally giving you some much needed economic feedback that normally without this update you wouldn't get at all. Another quality of life addition is that when you play the DLC Rizia, you can now choose what the president of Swordland was like without having to play the whole game. Because obviously they are connected, things do affect each other. Even though Rizia is a prequel, some of the president's decisions that you make in the base game do affect your Rizia playthrough. Before, there was just a default world state. Now, you get to decide what type of Swordland inhabits your world. Whether there was a communist enacting social reform in Swordland, or a pragmatic capitalist type who unleashed the free market in your country, but was a dictator. It makes your Rizia playthroughs a lot more dynamic and allows your world to have a different backdrop every playthrough. While there are only 3 options, I think that is a lot better than just the standard sort of default playthrough that they came up with. Another big addition is a lot of new story beats and scene additions. So this is almost entirely for the DLC Rizia. There were a couple in the main game, but not too many. Some of the biggest additions are actual content to the absolutism path and the monarcho-military dictatorship path, which is sort of more like a nationalist fuse of the military and monarchy, where behind the king is military officers holding the most power. Which, I don't know, if you don't know too much, that might sound like what it already is, but typically nobles behind the king hold the most power. This sort of flips it. Before this update, the absolutism path, where you decide to become the sole decision maker of the kingdom by getting rid of the House of Delegates, a sort of fake Congress since it was a purely advisory council to the king, but it sort of presented the facade of democracy to other countries. Now it can be fully disbanded in multiple ways. Before, in the absolutism path, there was just a decision late in the game where you had to shut it down. And then there was a few protests against your reign. But other than that, there was nothing new. There was nothing interesting about going absolutist. Now, you actually have to monitor and choose how to decide and deal with the growing reform movement and its radicalization. And then you can also choose to use the military to shut down the House of Delegates or simply just announce it. There's also some other new scenes that go along with that. And then also, of course, Rusty is the oligarch and owner of the Rizian Gold Company, which is a big part of the state treasury's value and revenue. Now they actually added some scenes where before he was just a bit of like a capitalist stooge. That's all he was really there for, was to show that capitalism and the other economic blocks around it are supporting him and want your kingdom to fail. Now there's some actual more fleshing out of him as a character with having a bit more of a backstory, and he's willing to help you more. Now you can actually sort of utilize him if you want a more capitalist playthrough. There are also 45 new decrees you get to sign, which really gives you a lot more power over how your kingdom is being governed. And they also made maintaining popularity and authority much harder in Rizia. Before this new update, it was very easy to maintain popularity and authority simply by making decent choices that would make generally most people like you, and even if you did sort of step out of line, there wasn't too much backlash. Now, your monarchy starts in a much more precarious situation. You become unpopular by any move that seems to favor the nobles over the commoners, and having unhappy religious groups also cuts down on your authority. Now, if you've never played the game, to make any sort of decision, you have to have authority, which is a sort of gamified version of showing you how much sway you as the king and your government has to make things happen. If nobody likes you, it's going to be hard to get anything new done. So that's sort of the game's way of showing that. They call it authority. Before the update, you were probably getting at least 4 authority a turn. It was pretty much a given. But now, depending on your actions, it's very possible to have it go into the negative. It's a lot harder to sort of get people to like you and sort of cement your power and centralization as the king. But I honestly like these changes. It makes the game a lot more interactive and it makes a lot of the choices harder to make. Before the update, I would definitely make a couple choices every game because it made the most sense game-wise because you get a lot of benefits. And obviously in real life it would make people unhappy, but you never really felt that. Now with a lot of these decrees and choices you get to make, you're like, well, if I want to centralize power, I should do this, but people are going to be upset. It actually makes you think about your choices a bit more. This also sort of makes the game feel a bit more alive because you're constantly told that your father's rule was terrible. He was called Valerio the Frail. That obviously means that his rule was not very great. He made a lot of bad choices. And before, you would kind of get told that a lot, but you would never really feel it because at the start of the game and throughout, unless you're making bad choices, the kingdom is mostly stable and making money and making energy, and things are typically okay. But now, you sort of have to dig yourself out of a hole. Instead of just being told that your father's reign did bring ruin to the kingdom, you finally get to feel it. It just makes you start in a lot harder spot, and you have to be a lot smarter in getting things you want done. I think that this update seriously proves that the devs are still committed to deep, reactive storytelling. If you haven't played since launch, this is your sign to come back. I seriously just have so much love for the Torpor team, those are the devs of the game, because this is a lot of work to put into a game that has already been released. I love how they just seem to enjoy fleshing out their world and just adding new content. I'm seriously excited for their new game, The Conformist. I think that'll be a new interesting look because you're just playing as a regular person in the universe, not one of the decision makers. And then there's also, of course, some more speculation about where the next DLC is going to be. People are saying Gaumland, which is a sort of new socialist republic that just arose. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where they take the series, because I'm honestly fine with wherever they want to take it. Me personally, I would prefer to not have to play as a sort of socialist aligned nation, because I do like how this game lets you sort of take whatever ideology you want. But the team has been beyond fair with balancing both pro-planned and more free market economies. They seem to be a very fair team overall when it comes to politics, which is very hard to do and maintain. So I have complete faith in the team. Whichever nation that they pick next will be fun to play through. That is all I have for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and do remember that Jesus loves you.